Are you a healer, coach, or soulpreneur who feels allergic to sales? Discover how to transform sales into an authentic, natural extension of your heart-centered work, attracting clients without ever feeling pushy or fake. Welcome to the Accelerate Ascension Summit, where we elevate awareness, magnify your message, and monetize your mission. I'm Dr. Katja Rusanen, your host, and joining us today is Ann Hession, who is energy healer and heart-centered sales expert. She helps healers and soulpreneurs transform their relationship to sales so they can confidently grow their business without feeling pushy or fake. With over 30 years of experience in transformational healing and millions in sales, she combines intuitive coaching with proven sales strategies to guide heart-centered business owners in sharing their gifts with the world. So welcome, Ann. I'm super happy to have you here.
Too. This is going to be great. Looking forward to it. Let's jump in.
Yeah, and I'm just curious always about the stories. How are we ending to do the work that we do? So, can you share a pivotal moment or insight that has shaped your journey to success?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. Because yeah, a lot of time sometimes it's a little almost jarring for people that they know that I'm an energy healer, all the woo-woo going on, right? And I'm a sales expert, and I love sales, and those two things are like what for a lot of people. So I'll tell you kind of how that came about. The woo-woo, healing part that was always there, and so I've was trying to make a living quite a few years ago as a coach and healer and I wasn't doing so well, right? And then there came this one day, and it was kind of late July 2007, and my husband and our two little girls and I, we were driving home to Rhode Island, where we live, from my family reunion in Western Massachusetts. And partway home, we realized that we needed to stop and get gas. So my husband pulled in to the gas station and convenience store and went to get some gas, not to fill the tank. Because remember how I said we weren't doing that well, right? Like we literally didn't have enough money to fill the tank. And but we had enough to get home, so we're putting some money, some gas in the tank, and then of course the girls woke up in the back seat, and they look up and they're like, "Mommy," and they see the convenience store and they see me, and they're like, "Mommy, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry. Can I get a snack? Can we get something now? I'm so hungry." And I had to look at my little girls and say no, because we literally there was nothing, I had nothing in my wallet. There was just enough in the bank account to get enough gas to get home. And I had to say no. And there was food at home and my kids got fed that night, but the whole rest of the way home, all I could think was like, I just had to choose between getting gas and feeding my kids. And I had to choose. There was no other, was that's it. And it was really one of those moments, I think life kind of gets divided into certain moments when life is like, that's how life was before that moment. And then this is how life is afterwards. And it was one of those moments for me because it was like, this can't go on. It just can't. I can't have that be, our future. And it helped me to see that I was just in denial about sales, essentially. Like I thought if I was just good at what I did and I really cared and I really wanted to help people, somehow the clients would just come. And it's just not true. It just isn't. And I realized I was going to have to learn how to sell what I do. No one was going to come along and sell it for me either. And that was a tough realization because I hated sales. I wanted nothing to do with it. But I also realized I had to like go deep in and shift my relation to that. Just like I had shifted my relationship to other things in life, I had to shift my relationship to sales and I had to learn it. And so that moment kind of gave me the courage to do something that I wouldn't have thought I would do. Right. And what that was I went and I got a sales job. I got 100% commission only sales job because I was like, I have to learn this. I have to. It was either that or give up and get some other kind of job, right? And give up on my dreams of my healing and coaching work. And I wasn't going to do that. So I got a sales job and I just took it on. I was like, I'm going to learn this stuff. And over a while, I actually I became good at it. I found there were things that I loved about it, like helping people solve problems is a huge part of sales. And I love helping people solve problems. And over time, I got to go the whole story, but then I got another sales job that was like, a whole nother level of training and stuff. And along the way, not only did I become very good at it, but I found ways to do sales that really worked for me, that resonated for me. There's sort of an old, I think there's an old outdated paradigm of sales out there in the world still. It's that yucky stuff that you think of when you think of sales. It's very, honestly, it has a lot of like male energy to it. It's very like always be closing and overcome objections and stuff. And that's not the way that works for me. And it's not the way that works for most healers and coaches. So over the years, I developed heart-centered, soulful. I really call it soulful sales. That's how I do it. And not only did that allow me to build a six-figure energy healing practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business, because I actually know how to sell and connect with people, but it's allowed me to help other people do the same thing. So that's how I got here. I had to embrace the thing that I thought I wanted nothing to do with, and it turned out to be a pretty amazing and wonderful journey.
I love that. And thank you for sharing your journey, because often we feel like, oh, there are just those people who know how to do sales. I'm not one of them. And you are just sharing your journey. You were allergic to, and you found the remedy.
I did. I found the remedy. And I like to think that I took one for the team, right? So I went through all of that. So the rest of you don't have to. Like you don't have to spend years, learning sales in sales jobs. I figured it out for you. So now you can just do it. You can learn it for me in a lot less time with a lot less grief.
Oh, yes, yes, please. And now let's dive into your presentation where we can start learning. And your presentation is called Soulful Success for Healers and Soulpreneurs. And during that, we will discover how soulful sales can support you in sharing your life-changing work. You'll also learn the biggest mistake most heart-based healers and coaches make when potential clients ask for more information, and how to turn that "tell me more" into "I'm in" to attract clients eager to pay for the incredible difference you make in the world. So I'm sure now people are eager to learn more from your wisdom. So the stage is yours, Ann.
All right, let's jump in. Okay. So we're going to look at what's underneath it all. We're gonna lift up the rock, see the creepy crawling stuff that's underneath that's causing us to have a really disempowered relationship to sales. Right. So here's what I've learned from I've had quite literally over 10,000 one-to-one conversations with healers and coaches over the last 10 years. And what I've learned is that they and most, kind of heart-based, soul-led business owners have a hidden subconscious belief that you have to be someone else. And by the way, someone you don't want to be in order to sell what you do. So here's how that might show up. So let me know if this resonates with you. You're talking with someone and you're getting along great, right? There's this great human to human connection happening. You're both interested in what you're talking about. And then something happens, right? Maybe they say, I'm interested, I want to find out more. And maybe they ask, what do you charge? Maybe they ask about, how do you work with people? Whatever it is, suddenly it's all weird. That sound familiar at all? You're like, you don't know what to say. You're completely stuck in your head. You're like, now I'm supposed to sell. What do I do? The bottom line is you're not present anymore, right? You basically start to feel like you have to be someone else. basically that nice, cool, interesting person that they were really enjoying talking with and even thinking they might want to work with. So that would be you. That person's gone because you, undistinguished in the background, have this belief that to sell, you can't just be you. So why is this happening? There's definitely more than one reason, including a lot of subconscious beliefs about what sales is and about yourself and, self-esteem and all kinds of stuff. And that's where the energy healing work that I do with my clients comes in. But right now, we're going to talk about the biggest reason right in the moment why this happens. Okay. And that is most healers and coaches and soulpreneurs, they just don't have yet the skills that you need. They're missing the skills that this situation requires. So one of the biggest pitfalls that most healers, heart-centered business owners fall into is simply not understanding this simple fact. Sales is just a set of skills that anyone can learn. Really, you included, okay? You learned the skills of what you do. You learned how to read and write. You learned how to play an instrument. You learned how to ride a bike. You learned how to play a sport. And you can learn sales skills. It's not magic. It's actually just a set of skills, period. And once you have those skills, you can sell your amazing, your wonderful, your transformational, life-changing services and offerings like crazy without ever having to be anything other than your own authentic self. You don't have to try to be someone else. You just need you fully present with the kind of heart-centered, relationship-based sales skills that you can feel good about. Okay. Here's an analogy. Imagine you are a musician. Let's say you play piano. Okay. So, a pianist or other musician, they practice their scales and arpeggios or chords over and over and over, not because they're going to play scales and arpeggios on stage, but because they are developing the skills to play a piece of music. Right. And once they have those skills, then it's easy for you to learn a specific piece of music because you have that skill level to learn that. Right. So you do all of that, the scales, practicing the piece so that when you go out on stage, you don't have to be concerned about what the next note is or whether or not you have the skills to hit the note. Right. You know the note, you have the skill, and that leaves you, because you have the skill, it leaves you free to be fully present, to allow the music to just come through you, and free to be totally present and with the audience in a way that you could never be if you were trying to remember what note to play next, right? Or you didn't have the skills to hit it. And because sales is just like that. When you have the skills, you're free to just be you. You're free to be fully present and connected with the other person and clear about what to ask them and just able to have a real conversation to serve and help them get what they want. Sales is mostly about helping people get what they want, right? So can you guys see that as much as you might want to be yourself, if you don't also have the skills that this situation requires, it's kind of like walking out on stage as the performer, right? And not only do you not know this song, you don't even know how to play chopsticks, right? It's not going to be a great experience for you or for them. Can you see that? By not understanding that these are just skills you can learn, and therefore you never went out and learned them, in every potential sales conversation, it's like you've been walking out on the concert stage on your own without any of the prep you needed and wondering why it wasn't working, right? So if you can relate to that, I want you to know it doesn't have to stay with that way. And also, it's not your fault. It's just no one ever taught you how. Like no one ever taught you there was a way to do sales that feels good and feels authentic and based in your heart and a genuine connection with the other person. And I'm here to remedy that. Right. So we're going to do that right now. You ready to learn some skills? So I'm going to lay out for you now one of the biggest mistakes that you have almost certainly been making, because everybody does in my experience. And I'm going to teach you the exact skill you need to turn this around for good. Okay. I'm going to show you a place where a prospective client actually lays a trap for you, although they don't mean to and they don't realize they're doing it. But you're probably falling into this trap almost every time. Okay. So I call it the tell me more trap. And here is how it goes. You are talking with someone and they express some interest in finding out more about what you do, what you offer. It could just be in a casual setting. It could be they were referred to you by someone. However you got here, they say some version of those magic words, the words that you've been wanting to hear. They say something like, it sounds really interesting. Tell me more. And your brain is like, yeah, they're interested. They're asking. They want to know more, right? The thing is, that's where you make the mistake because you're missing a skill. Right? So because you're missing the skill, you fall right into the trap. They didn't even know they were setting you. How do you fall into the trap? You start telling them more. If you get nothing else from this training, please get this. Usually about the worst thing you can do when they say, tell me more, is to just jump in and start telling them more. That might sound crazy, but here's why. You don't know why they want to know more. You really don't. You don't know what of all the things you could tell them, they actually have any interest in at all. Sometimes people ask you to tell them more because they're kind of just being polite. Sometimes people ask you to tell me more because they're kind of intellectually curious. They kind of want to understand it, but they're not actually thinking of it as being something for them. Someone else might ask you to tell them more about it because they think they might have a resource or a connection for you, and they're just trying to find out a little bit more to see if they should, share that resource or connection with you. It could be that their neighbor's daughter is studying something that sounds kind of similar to what you just said you do, and they're actually just asking because they're trying to figure out if what you do is the same thing their neighbor's daughter does. So that was 4 different possible reasons why people might ask you, and completely different conversations. Does that make sense? Right? So if you don't know why they asked, the odds of you giving them information that they want that will make a difference for them are like slim to none, right? So think about it. How many of you absolutely love what you do? You love it, right? I love what I do. And because I love it, I can talk about it. I can geek out about it for hours. Right? And you probably could too. You could probably easily talk for 6 hours about what you do and how it works and where it came from and how much you love it and how you got trained and how long you've been doing it and all the amazing results people get, and on and on. And so to be honest, I can't be the only person listening who's done this, right? Their eyes kind of start to glaze over at some point, and that's where they say something like, thanks, that was interesting, thanks for answering my questions, or I guess I'll let you know if I want to find out more. And everyone's favorite, I'll think about it, right? And they run. All right, so who recognizes this scenario? Maybe they don't actually run, but their eyes do start to glaze over a bit. And you start to feel kind of weird and not know what to do next. So maybe you keep talking and then you're like, why am I still talking? Maybe you finally just change the subject or somehow end the conversation. And later you are left thinking, what happened? They really seemed interested. I don't know what went wrong. And then possibly, oh, I hate sales, right? So have you ever experienced some version of this? Of course, that's not sales. That's like the absence of sales, right? That's what happens when the skills are missing, right? And the truth is that, you're right. You don't actually, you don't really know what went wrong but just because this isn't a knowledge base and a skill set that you have yet, okay? But I'm about to teach you now one small, very powerful skill, what to say when people ask you to tell them more. And like most skills, once you have it, it's not hard. You don't even have to think about it. This is an ingrained skill in me. I've done my skills and arpeggios. I have the skills, so I can just be present with the person instead of in my own head. So if someone says to me, "That's interesting. What can you tell me about it?" Without having to stop and think, get in my own head, I'm just going to naturally say, and you're going to want to write this down. "I would love to tell you more, but first, what interests you about it?" And then listen. Can you see yourself doing that? Just instead of starting to fire hose them with information because we're so excited about what we do, don't do that. Instead, just ask this simple question, right? Instead of launching on them. This alone will change your results. Now, that one little skill that I just taught you, that's actually step one of 5 things. 5 very natural and simple things to do, but 5 things when someone says some version of "tell me more," all of which add up to a very genuine, easy, relaxed conversation that isn't weird for you or the other person and has a really high likelihood of turning into a successful sales conversation. So I picked this one very simple skill as a skill to teach you because it happens so early on. And can you see that not having this skill is actually killing your potential, possible sales conversations before they even get started? So that was just one small skill, one technique. And did you feel like you learned something valuable, right? Could you see yourself doing that? Right. So I'm going to teach you one additional skill, though, because I'd love for you to leave with 2 powerful, powerful things that you can use right away in your business. Right. So if you've ever had someone say, when you have offered your amazing services, if you've ever had someone say, "Oh, but that's too much," or "I don't know if I can afford that," or you've been so afraid someone was going to say that you didn't jump into the conversation in the first place, I am going to teach you a very, very powerful way to turn that around completely and get even more connected rather than that concern stopping the conversation. All right. So anyone who has their own business, we've all had this come up. It's something like, "It sounds great, but I can't afford it," or "It's too much for me." So first of all, very, very often, this is what people say. It's like the go-to thing they say when really there's something else going on under the surface, behind the screen of "I can't afford it." And I don't mean by that people don't have, whatever real and sometimes difficult circumstances that they have around money. I do mean almost always there are other things going on, other concerns that if you knew what they were, you could address them and resolve them, the money issue would disappear. Not always, but very often. So they're saying it's money, but really it's because they aren't sure that it's going to work or solve their problem. Or they're saying it's money, but really because their spouse is a no, right? Or doesn't agree, or their partner, and they need their agreement. Or maybe they're saying it's money, but really it's because they have an issue spending money on themselves, which isn't the same thing, right? They have the money, but they just have this internal limitation about how they can spend it. You getting this? And you can't address an objection, the real objection, if you don't know what it is, can you? So how do you find out? I'm about to tell you. So when you get a money objection, one way to find out what's really going on is to ask some version of this very simple question. "Okay, and I understand. Do you mind if I ask, if you did have the money, would you be saying yes, or is there something else?" Now, please note, I'm not saying if it were free. It's not free. You're not actually backing down in the price, but you are inquiring to get more clarity on what else is going on. And then you listen. If there's another objection, this is when it will come up. This is where they might say they have a concern about spending it on this or spending it on themselves, which is not the same thing as not having the money. Okay. Are you getting this? I'll give you a couple of examples. So maybe you say, "I understand. Do you mind if I ask if you did have the money, would you be saying yes? Or is there something else? They might say, well, I do have it, but, or, well, even if I had it, I just don't feel right spending it on myself. That's the real objection. Now, there's a whole different conversation that could be possible. You could say, oh, yeah, I get that. Is that something that's hard for you in general? And listen, let them know you get that you know what that feels like. Maybe you could then ask a different question, making a different kind of invitation. Like, I get that. Do you mind if I ask if you were okay with spending money on yourself? Is this something you'd like to do for yourself? Do you get that it's a different conversation? Okay, it's opening things up rather than things being shut down by the money concern. And simply asking that question of, if the money part were handled, or if you did have it, would you be saying yes? It can change everything, right? I'm going to give you one more example. So they say some version of, I can't afford it, or it's too much for me. You might say something like, all right, I understand. Do you mind if I ask, if you did have the money, would you be saying yes? Or is there some other concern? This time, let's say they reply with, well, I do have it, but I'm still not sure because I don't know if this will work for me. So do you get, that's a value concern. They aren't sure yet of the value to them. So now again, you could have a different conversation. You might say something like, I understand that. So you'd like to know more and feel more confident about what this is and maybe what kind of results people have gotten so you could make a more informed decision. Is that right? And then listen. They'll very likely tell you right then what it is that's missing, right? Like what they need to hear to be a yes. And of course, you're not going to promise them something you can't promise, but can you see now you're having a conversation that is about the value to them? You and they are now getting clear about what they really need. So now you can work to address that instead of you being stuck, right? And like stymied behind the wall of, I can't afford it, which was masking the real concern. Okay. So it's a set of skills, really. And once you learn them and you practice this, you will have a skill that will serve you very, very well for the rest of your life. So I hope that you found that useful and are walking away with some skills that you can use right away.
So much, and that was super helpful and I love those examples because that helped to dive even deeper and like, oh, yes, I have done that. Oh, yes, I have heard that. So, wow, that was full of wisdom and practical steps. And before we wrap up here, could you please give us a sneak peek into the valuable gift you've prepared for our audience?
I will. So remember when I said about the Tell Me More trap, that there were actually 5 steps to really fully handling it, sometimes even 6. And I taught you the first one, which is the most important one, which is just instead of fire hosing with information, to say, I'd love to tell you more, but first, what interests you? What got your attention? But you really want to have all of them, right? You want all the steps. And that is what I'm going to teach you in my free gift to you, the New Client Accelerator Program, which will teach you in depth the whole breakdown of what needs to happen in a sales conversation to be really connected and to have it be relationship based and to have it be about really serving the other person, as well as being able to effectively offer your amazing services. So that is my gift to you, the New Client Accelerator Program. And it even comes with 2 bonuses. So go sign up for it now and find out what your amazing bonuses are as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that is a really awesome gift. So yes, go and check it out right now. And as we are wrapping up here, is there a final message about soulful sales that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I would love to. I think sales is the place where most soulful, heart-centered, healer, coaches, transformational people get hung up. And because it just, for all kinds of reasons, not having the skills, triggering all these things, but you have to understand that it really is at the heart of your business. There's nothing that's more at the heart of your business than actually selling what you do, because without that, people don't get what you have to offer. And what you have to offer is too important. It's too needed in the world for you to get stopped by just not having the skills that you need to offer it out there. So embrace it. Sales doesn't have to be the yucky, gross thing you think it does. It can be an absolutely connected, delicious, authentic, even spiritual experience. Sometimes I call it sacred sales. And you, just like I realized that day at the gas station, you can't be in denial about this. If you don't learn sales, you won't have a business. It's the one skill you absolutely have to have in order to have a business. And it doesn't have to be what you think it is. It can be delightful.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anne, for your time and valuable insights you've shared with us today. And thank you for tuning in and joining us in this Accelerate Ascension Summit session. It's time to shine, share, and succeed. And if you enjoyed this session, please give it thumbs up. And I am looking forward to see you more. So have a good day and talk soon. Bye-bye.
Fun.